All right, we're starting Chapter 8 review. This is page 330 in your textbook. We're going to start on question 5 from the 8-1 solving equations in one-step equations. The first question, question 5, says 4d equals negative 2/5. Now, in one-step equations, sometimes you have to use fractions. You don't have to. In fact, right here, I could multiply both sides by 5 if I wanted to, and that would work. I could do that. And to show you that I could do that, I'm going to put this up here and just do it because I can. If I multiplied both sides by 5, which seems weird but possible, I would have 20d over here, and I would have negative 2 over here, just to show you it can be done. And then I would divide both sides by 20, and d would equal negative 1/10, or in decimal form, negative 1/10. All right. So that is possible to do it that way. However, most of you probably did this: divide by 4 and divide by 4. Okay, and in doing so, you've isolated for d, and the quotient to 2/5 divided by 4, which is the same thing as negative 2/5 multiplied by the reciprocal of 4, would be negative 2/20, or negative 1/10, or negative 1/10. So just to show you that as long as you maintain the basic law of algebra, that whatever you do to one side of an algebraic equation you do to the other, you will always end up getting to the right place eventually. And since the two ways we could have done it is multiply both sides by 5 to get rid of the fractions, or divide both sides by 4 to get rid of the coefficient, both were equally as eventually solvable. In the second part, B, 5b, we have 2.68 equals a third of y. So for this one, there really isn't much more we can do than just multiply both sides by 3, because you would isolate for y if you multiply both sides by 3. And 2.68 multiplied by 3, 2.68 multiplied by 3 is 8.04. That's a pretty easy one. 5c says 3.5 divided by h, is equal to negative 0.2. And again, these questions, I think we've said it many times before. In grade 8, you would have had something like this. And in this particular case, the first thing you would have done is multiply both sides by x. To get rid of that, you would have 4 equals 2x. Divide both sides by 2, and x will equal 2. A variation of a grade 8 question. In grade 9, the only difference being you will have decimals here. So the first thing is you're going to multiply both sides by h. You get 3.5 equals, that negative 0.2 now just becomes a coefficient, because when you multiply a number by a variable, it essentially assumes the role of a coefficient. Divide both sides by that coefficient, and h will equal 7.5, negative 7.5. $3.50 divided into piles of 20 cents. You can make 5 piles for $1. You can make... That's not right. I did that wrong. That's not right. Yeah, because you make 5 piles with $1. You can make 15 piles with $3. You can make 2 more piles with 50 cents and a half. Yeah, so 17.5. Just trusting what I hear. And question D is very easy as well. Divide both sides by your coefficient. There's actually nothing easier than this one. Take your calculator and ask it what 14.44. And if you're not strong with your integer sense, make sure you press this button here to change it to positive, negative. It's real easy though, but if you're not good at it, do it that way. Divide it by 7.6 and press that positive, negative button to make sure it knows it's negative. Equals a positive 1.9. And that's your solution. Question 6 on page 330 in chapter review says 67.5 is equal to negative 14.3 W. So again, simply divide both sides by the coefficient. Isolates W, and you get the quotient, if I can pull up my calculator, 67.5. Now I'm not going to do the negative sign this time because I know when I'm multiplying, dividing, I just follow sign rules. So I know that's going to be a negative because it's a positive divided by a negative. Oh, and I forgot what the number is. 4.72 says round to the nearest tenth. So approximately 4.7. Approximately equal. And question 6, negative 68.3 divided by a number is equal to negative 7.6. Usually, in these cases, we like to keep our negative symbol in with our denominator because the next step will allow us to isolate in one step. I'm going to multiply both sides by negative k to get rid of that divide by negative k. Will equal positive 7.6k because a negative multiplied by the negative will be the positive. Divide both sides by your new coefficient. And k will equal 68.3 divided by 7.6 is, we're rounding to your nearest tenth. That will become 8.9. We'll go up 1, which will make it 9.0. 9.0. Don't forget to put your approximately. Approximately the value of 9 is the value of k. Question 7. The destiny of an object, I can't read, d in grams per cubic centimeter is defined by d equals m over v. So d equals m over v seems very complicated because there's letters and v's and m's and equal signs and capital D's, and it looks very complicated. And it says the word grams, which seems complicated, and cubic centimeters, which sounds weird, and the word mass, which you think is a Catholic ceremony, and grams, which are married to grandpas, and all kinds of complicated things. But really, all you have to do is be able to read it and substitute and simplify. So it says the density of pure iron is 7.87 grams. So I'm going to change D to 7.87 because that says the destiny of iron. Sorry, the density. I'm going to get killed. It says, what is the mass? What is the mass means I don't know it, so I'm going to put M as I don't know it, of a piece of pure iron with a volume of 5.5. So all I do is I substitute all that doodad stuff in there. I'm going to multiply, thank you. I'm going to multiply both sides by 5.5. To isolate for M, that's the mass, what I'm looking for. At 7.87 multiplied by 5.5 is 43.285. Since it's a terminating decimal, we will use all of our decimal points there. It's a story problem, so we'll put a therefore symbol. The mass is 43.285 grams. The second part to that B says, what is the volume of a piece of pure iron with a mass of blah, 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 blah. So this time, the density doesn't change. It's still 7.87. The mass is now known. It's 98.375. But the volume is not. So we write our formula. We multiply both sides by V first. That ends up with 98.375 over here. But look over here. Multiplying a number by a variable. Remember the variable, the number will assume the coefficient rule. So I'm going to rewrite it as a coefficient and a V. Dividez-vous both sides by the coefficient. And the volume will be 98.375 divided by 9.87, which is, the V will be 12.5. Now, since we're dealing with volume, you have to figure out what units it is. And if you go back to units, it's cubic centimeters. So the volume will be 12.5 cubic centimeters. Therefore, blah, 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 12.5 centimeters cubed. Question 8 we did already, didn't we? I think we did. I gave you a hint anyway. So Raj and Tom are the top scorers on their soccer team. One season, Raj scored a quarter of the team's goals, and Tom scored 1/6 of the team's goals. Raj and Tom scored a total of 25 goals. The question says, how many goals did their team score? So we don't know, and we're looking for it. So how many goals, team goals in total is what we're looking for, and therefore shall be represented by the variable x. So Raj, it says, scored 1/6 of the team's goals. So we can either write it like that, or if you wanted to do it like this, you could. 1/6 is going to be that. So since x is the total number of goals, and Raj scored 1/6 of them, it'd do that. And Tom scored 1/5 of the goals. Now together, they scored 25 goals. So there's our equation. Raj's goals, which is 1/6 of the team's goals, plus Tom's goals, which is 1/5 of the goals, will equal 25. Oh, a quarter? No, my fault. Not a fifth, but a quarter. So, how are we going to solve this? Well, right off the bat, I'm noticing that I have fractions in an algebraic equation, and I hate fractions. So I'm going to multiply both sides by a multiple of that, which is going to be 12. That will give me a new equation that is devoid of fractions. So if you want, rewrite it like this. And then that doesn't have to be rewritten. For those of you who cross-reduce, you'll get 2x. For those of you who don't cross-reduce, you get 12x over 6, which is still going to be 2x. For those of you who cross-reduce, you'll get 3x. For those of you who don't, we'll get 12x over 4, which is still 3x. And those two will be on this side. And you'll get 250 plus another 50, which is 300. Now, if you notice, their goals now didn't become 1/6 of the team goals and a quarter of the team goals, but rather 2 times the team's goals and 3 times the team's goals, which is 5x when you simplify it because you can gather like terms. Dividez-vous both sides by the coefficient, and x will equal 60, and therefore the total goals scored by the team is 60. Now, since Raj scored 1/6 of the team's goals, Raj would have scored 10 goals. And since Tom scored a quarter of those team's goals, a quarter of 60 would be 15. So Raj scored 10, and Tom scored 15 goals. Exciting stuff. Question 10. Nana, I'm just going to tell you what mistake she made. It's on the last line. Here was what the last line of Nana's equation looked like. And Nana had none of that because she divided both sides by 3.3, which she clearly should have divided both sides by the coefficient itself and not the opposite of the coefficient. And that's what she should have done. So Nana is slightly doltish. Question 11. We have a 2-step algebraic equation with a fractional coefficient. In all 2-step equations, the easiest thing to get rid of is your constant first. So on the left, you'll be left with that. Now, for some of you, decimals, when you add and subtract negative decimals, it's complicated. But for this one, it's a negative and negative, so you're just going to have a lot of negatives. But if you do stink at it, grab your calculator and put negative 3.2. Add that to negative 5.9, and the calculator will do all the mental work for you. Negative 9.9. Multiply both sides by 1.6, and t will equal the product of those two. So I'm going to multiply that by, and it gives me negative 14.56 for that one. In question 11b, we have 2.05 is equal to 0.9x minus 6.5. Your constant is negative 6.5, so I'm going to add 6.5 to both sides. 0.9x will equal, well, I can do this myself. I don't need no stinking calculator. $2.05 plus $6.50 is $8.55. Divide both sides by your coefficient. And x will equal, what does x equal? Do you want me to try and do it in my head? Yes. $8.55 divided by 9 is 18. No. It's 10 is 8. It's 9. 9.8? 9.2? Oh, I don't know. 9.5. Oh, so close. Brain is not working. I could have figured that out if I had to. Too much pressure. I'm always finding a lot of pressure on these questions when I have to do it, and I'm making a video. That story problem still gave me nightmares. I was waking up in the middle of the night, figuring out how many times the Earth goes around its axis with question 13. But anyway, I digress. 2/5 is equal to 2/3 minus r over 5. Now, for some of you, you might want to subtract 2/3 from both sides, and that is acceptable. If you want to subtract 2/3 from both sides to get rid of that fraction coefficient, by all means do so. But I think by now you realize that any equation that has a fraction in it, if you make it larger on both sides by a factor of whatever the common multiple of the denominators is, in this case, 3 and 5 would have 15 as their first shared multiple. So if I multiply both sides by 15, I know I maintain equality, but I create an equation that does not have any fractions. This side would become 6, or 30 over 5, really, which will be 6. Because it's two terms on the right, I need to use distributive property. I probably should rewrite it. That will be 30 over 3, which is 10. This one would be 15 over 1 multiplied by negative r over 5. That would be negative 15r over 5, which is negative 3r. So by multiplying both sides by 15, I've created a much simpler algebraic equation. Solve, and r will equal 1 1/3. Positive 1 1/3, or 4/3, or if you want to keep it as a decimal, 1.3 repeating. And your last one, question 11D. 2.5 plus 1 1/6 v equals negative 5/6. I feel like I did this one. Mixed fractions stink. Change them to improper. Notice that you have a fractional coefficient. Tell yourself that this is the same thing as this, which is the same thing as this, and rewrite it in a simpler way. So I'm going to write it as 7v over 6, which is the same thing as 7/6v, which is the same thing as 1 1/6 v. Identify you have fractions in there. Be scared. Determine that it's much better to multiply both sides by a common multiple of the denominator, which in this case is 6. And be happy. That would be 30 over 2, which is still going to be 15. Put your arrows in if you forget. 6 over 1 multiplied by 7v over 6. Cross-reduce if you're smart. Don't cross-reduce if you're not and get 42v over 6. But either way you do it, you end up with plus 7v. Cross-reduce to get negative 5, or don't and get negative 30 over 6, which is still negative 5. Oh, I remember why I did this. I did it in tutoring yesterday. You get 7v equals negative 20. Divide both sides by 7, and v will equal negative 2 and 6/7. Or as a decimal, whatever. Question 12 says, Okasana paid a $14 handling charge, to buy 4 Leela Gilday concert tickets. I think she wasted her money. I think going to see Leela Gilday is not what I would spend my money on. Holy mackerel, look at the cost of her order. The total cost of her order, including the handling charge, she spent $153.80 to go see Lilda Gilday. What was the cost of the ticket? So she bought 4 tickets. So X is the number of tickets. No, sorry, the cost of a ticket. What is the cost? Not number, because you bought 4. Is the cost of each ticket of a ticket. So she bought 4 of them. So 4 times X is going to be the cost of those tickets, because she bought 4 of them, plus the $14 handling charge, which is just a one-time payment, is equal to the cost of $153.80. So we're going to subtract the handling charge from the total cost, and the 4 tickets themselves without the handling charge would be $139.80. Is that right? Maybe. Now, divide the number of tickets by 4, and each of those tickets would be $139.80 divided by 4 is $34. Oh, that's not too bad, I guess, and 95 cents. So therefore, the cost of a ticket, since it's X, is $34.95. Okay, we're back after talking about Jamiroquai. Question 14 on page 331. We have 3 groups of 5.8 plus E equivalent to negative 2.7. So again, with distributive property, there's 2 ways you can always solve it, and I'll show you both. The first way, I'll just clone it here. Hang on. Clone. Shrink. The first way, of course, and I'm going to bore those people who get it, is to divide both sides by the multiple that you're having. So instead of having 3 groups of 5.8 plus E, you have 1 group of 5.8 plus E, equivalent to negative 0.9. This makes your life much simpler because you have to subtract 5.8 from both sides, and you would have E equals negative 6.7. Now, if you're one of those people who loves to expand, by all means do so. That's going to be 17.4 plus 3E equals negative 2.7. Subtract 17.4 from both sides. 3E will equal negative 20.1. Divides out both sides by 3, and E will still equal negative 6.7. Question B. Has fractions. Multiply both sides by the common multiple to get rid of fractions and make your question easier. In this case, I'm going to multiply both sides by 6. This will become negative 5, or negative 30 over 6, which is negative 5. Now, when you cross-reduce, notice you have a binomial multiplied by this 2, so don't forget to expand using distributive property. That'll be 2r minus 8. Add 8 to both sides. 2r equals 3. Divide by 2. And r equals 1.5, or 1.5. Oh, sweet tea and cookies, this is taking forever. Fractions, bad. Get rid of fractions by multiplying by a common multiple. In this case, since there's only 1 fraction, that common multiple is negative 2. H will equal 19.3. I think, unless I made a mistake. And the last question of your homework was negative 4/5 bracket q plus 1 equals negative 1.5. Okay, so I'm going to show you using division first. So if I gave you this question here, and you used division first, you would have done this. Agreed? Yes, Mr. Mack. So I am going to divide both sides by this, for no other reason than I can. Q plus 1 equals multiply by the reciprocal. That will be negative 15 over negative 8, or positive 1 and 7/8. Subtract 1 from both sides, and Q will equal 7/8. That's the easy way to do it. But for most of you, how many of y'all expanded? Probably most of you. So if I'm going to expand this, I'm going to get negative 4Q over 5 plus, subtract negative 4/5 equals negative 1 1/2. And from there, multiply both sides by 5, but you still get the answer, blah, 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 blah. End of video, and